Welcome to another sewing project video. Thank you so much for tuning in. So we're going to dive straight into it. So we're starting off in Russia with a PatternEasy backless dress that I first stumbled upon as a Pinterest image, and then a few years later I discovered that PatternEasy had a sewing pattern for it. And I fixated on actually making this dress in time for my Normandy camping trip back in August, and I gave myself only a few days to try and sew this up. As you can imagine, I created my own problems and issues with this dress. I had so much trouble figuring out the instructions because it doesn't have a closure in terms of a zipper or anything like that. It's got a complex set of pockets where you also have an overlap and some buttons with button loops, and it was just a bit of the inside is a hot mess, as you'll see very soon. This is a Russian sewing pattern company, so the instructions are in Russian. You can try and use Google Translate, obviously, but sometimes things are lost in translation. However, as you can see there, I've got the pockets, and they're the ones that form the closure where the buttons are. Linen doesn't like being sewn into a tube and then trying to turn the tube over to make those lovely little button loops, but for some reason I fixated on the idea that I had to get them done like this. The sizing for PatternEasy is based on 3 tiers according to your height, and their ease is very much spot on. So this is selected based on my bust, waist and height measurements, and it's pretty much perfect. I didn't have a lot of fun by the time I finished sewing this up, but it had to be done because I know myself, if I do not finish a project and it ends up in the UFO box of doom, that is it. It is in a nebulous black hole, never to be seen again. So I knew I had to finish it, and that was the only way that I could redeem it. If I could just get to wear it, I might be able to try and have a go at it. But as you can see, tons of hand sewing in there because hand sewing saves a multitude of sins. Loads of patchwork to try and cover up bits that would have just been raw otherwise. And, you know, it's linen. I love working with linen. The dress turned out to be okay. It was wearable, but the annoying thing was I didn't even manage to wear it during the holiday because it was raining the entire time and it was cold, so I couldn't get around in a backless thing like this. So lesson learned there, don't rush projects. This next project started off when I was watching A Bigger Splash, a movie starring Tilda Swinton amongst other people, and in it, though the story isn't all that great, her wardrobe was designed exclusively by Christian Dior, and it is amazing. It is a visual feast to behold. It is a gorgeous film to watch. The story is boring, wouldn't recommend it for that, but if you wanted to just see Tilda Swinton swanning around in some beautiful garments, check out this movie. But I absolutely fell in love with this shirt dress, which I found out was available on PatternEasy. So this dress, I love this dress. This was so much work. It took a long time for me to finally put it together, trying to figure out the instructions and all this. And I did actually make this a couple of years ago, and I don't even know how this fell through the net and I didn't actually get to share it, but I wanted to share it because I have been wearing it this summer. But as you can see from the line drawing there, it just has so much going on, especially that back. That was the thing that attracted me. It's got that twisted back, and it's got like a button and buttonhole facing at the back as well that create that twist, and it took me ages to figure this out, to figure how to make it. I decided to make it in a chambray, a blue chambray, because I thought that suited the style. I wanted it to have enough drape for that twist at the back to hold, but also enough crispness so that the collar details, you know, the button plackets would also hold as well. So this chambray just worked out perfectly. I also love the fact that it's got an uneven hem, so it's lower at the front and longer at the back. And you can see that the precise drafting, because for my size, the neck collar just fits perfectly, not too tight and not too loose. Love that curved button placket. I made a mistake initially with the placement. As you can see there, there's some buttonholes. That was because I'd placed it over instead of the other way around. Mistakes happen, but it's always better sewn than perfect. And very proud of the tower plackets that I did on the sleeve there. I don't like the buttons that I used. The buttons are these mother of pearl buttons, which are very flimsy. And one of the things that I do want to fix about this is to change those buttons. But as you can see, the fabric, the chambray, holds that twist so well. And every single buttonhole and button that you're seeing there, it is functional. It is not just ornamental, which is amazing. It has pockets as well, because pockets are everything. And I love this dress so much. The only thing though is that with PatternEasy, their drafting is such that they've got very little ease on it. So I can fit into this dress as long as I'm living a very normal routine life where I'm running around, taking the kids to their after school activities and doing all of this stuff that keeps me active. But when we're during quarantine and I'm putting on those COVID pounds and I'm putting on those, extra centimeters around my hip, because that's where I tend to put on weight, it does get a little bit tight around the hip area. And you can kind of see how sometimes it sort of drags after I am moving, but it is such a beautiful dress pattern, well worth all of the time and effort it took to make it. I personally prefer to wear it with the sleeves rolled up and with the top two buttons undone. Obviously, you need to wear it with a kind of like a backless bra. I'm braless with it. I can wear it braless because I am quite flat-chested. But as you can see there on the inside out details, because I wasn't sure about how this was going to turn out. I wasn't even finishing it with an overlocker because I was worried about having to take it apart, which I did a couple of times actually. I had to take certain bits apart just to make sure that I had done it the correct way. It has got nice deep pockets and I love it. Highly recommend this pattern. And it feels awesome that I'm wearing something that Tilda Swinton had actually worn, although there is no way it looks as good on me as it does on her. We're staying in Russia and PatternEasy with a wrap dress. I love this wrap dress. I have made it before in a lemons fabric, and this time I made it in a John Calder cotton lawn that is ever so crisp and ever so light and ever so perfect for this dress. Everything about it screams summer, from the light pastel pinks and pastel blues, the deep V neckline, the cinched in waist. It's got a sundress feel to it, but it's a wrap dress, and I love it. And to add to add a cherry to the icing on the top, it's got like these beautifully deep pockets that are wide enough even for my Kindle to fit in. So this dress has got super long belts at the side, and one of the belts is actually inserted, attached to the bodice on a dart. So because of those belts, it makes this particular pattern a bit of a fabric piggy, but I do have a little trick which you can use in order to reduce the amount of fabric that you need in part of those belts, and that's basically to sew the belts in two parts, which I'll show you in just a little while. But it's a very comfortable dress, and with this dress I decided that I wanted more flare, and so I did the cut and slash method, and I added an extra 2 inches at the front skirt. So 2 times 2, that's an extra 4 inches in total, and that just gives it more flare than it normally would have. And this dress has been getting a lot of wear in the summer because the fabric is just perfect summer, and it fits in with my gardening theme as well, because I have a lot of pink flowers in my garden. I love wearing it with a wide brim head. It is very stylish and very versatile. The thick straps there mean that you can wear it with a bra. The pocket construction is very interesting because there is a side panel, so the skirt is effectively kind of like a 6-gore skirt, and you can see there the wide straps that can hide a bra strap, and I really like that about the dress. The bodice is fully lined, and you can see there where the belt goes in, where that dot is, and that creates that super flat look at the front, which you don't normally get with wrap dresses, especially ones that have long belts, because you kind of have to twist it round the way, or you have to make a hole that you then thread it through, but not so with this particular dress. The facing is interfaced just to give that front a little bit more structure, and you can see there that side panel that creates the deep pockets. It's kind of like a zigzaggy thing. It's a very interesting construction method actually, and I love it. I love everything about this dress. As I said, it got so much wear. You can see that it's lined. I decided to use the same fabric for the lining because why not? And I also loved sewing on the tag. That's kind of like my favorite part of any sewing project, is where I get to sew on my personalized handmade label. Hello Burda, so we're gonna move slightly south down to Germany, and I have here a dress from Burda 9 2019, one of my favorite issues, and I made this in a cotton lawn. It's a Lady McElroy Gunthorpe cotton lawn, and this lawn is the most delicate lawn that I have ever worked with. It is so beautifully light and crispy, so much so that the pattern itself for the wrap dress requires that you use some D-rings on that front facing, and you're supposed to thread the belts through the D-rings, so you don't actually have a tie belt per se. But I just couldn't see how something as heavyweight as a metallic D-ring would work with the lightness and the crispness of this. It just felt like it would drag it down, and I couldn't bring myself to do it, and I didn't want to use plastic D-rings either. I felt like that they just brought the outfit down, so I instead ended up just doing kind of like a normal thread through belt, which I thought I could get away with because the fabric is so busy. It's such a busy fabric that you can't even really see some of the detail on the bodice, you know, unless if you look at the line drawing. But it is a really beautiful fabric. I enjoyed working with the fabric, and I thought that the lightness of this fabric worked really well with the gathers that you have on the bodice of this particular wrap dress pattern. I was attracted to this style because it's a wrap dress, and I liked how it had that simple neckline finish with that tiny little stand collar. I also liked those pointy details at the bodice, and I do like a roll-up sleeve with a tab and button. I first came across that in the Pauline Alice Kame blouse, and I've really liked that since then. So despite the fact that the fabric is so busy and you can't see the details, I did spend the time actually doing all of that stuff. But this pattern would be easy to adapt so that you didn't have those pointy pocket flaps, because they are just ornamental. You don't actually have any pockets on there. I get a very 70s vibe when I am wearing this dress, and I sort of feel like it's a bit, it makes me feel very proper, like in a how I used to perceive the older generation when I was a child. So I'm a little bit borderline about whether this particular look and dress actually suits me. And you can see there where the belt is attached, and my little fix where I just did a horizontal buttonhole along that waist seam. It's a bit of a cheat, I know, but it kind of achieved what I wanted without having to add the hardware of metal against that beautifully soft, crisp cotton lawn. The facing, you can make that wider if you wanted to. Personally speaking, I think it would benefit with a wider facing. I had to use the very lightest interfacing that I had because this is a very light cotton lawn. As I was saying, I'm not 100% certain about this dress. So a part of me, so the couple of times that I have worn it, I just haven't felt very much like this is me. The fabric itself technically was great to work with, and I do like the colors. I'm just not sure whether the geometric print suits me as well. So one of the things that I am considering with this dress to make it more wearable, like an easy way that I just pull up, is to turn it into a skirt, like a wrap skirt. What do you guys think about that? Just let me know in the comments box down below if you think that this should be turned into a skirt, or I should just grin and bear it. I mean, if I turned it into a skirt, I would probably add pockets. Maybe that's where I went wrong. Maybe I should have added pockets to it, but it's such a light fabric, I didn't think that it would do really well with pockets. Yay or nay for the skirt? I do need help with this one. We're gonna keep hanging out with Burda now, and we've got Burda 7 2020 number 104, a dress that I much anticipated. I was so excited about. I traced and I cut into this fabric within the first 3 days of getting the magazine. Something went wrong here, guys, and you've got the next 60 seconds or so to try and see if you can spot it out before I get to the point where I show you what went wrong. Okay, so first things first, I changed up the skirt. So instead of doing the skirt that had an asymmetrical pleat on it, I decided that I knew better, and I was going to use the skirt from a vintage Burda, from a 1969 Burda, which has got a box pleat. The number one thing that attracted me to this pattern was those cutaway sleeves, and I liked the fact that it had princess seams. The fabric itself is a Lady McElroy cotton sateen, which has just got some spandex and a little bit of stretch. So I thought that this style was suited to a cotton sateen which would stretch out. It's got a bird print, which I have come to realize was probably too large a bird print for this particular style, because I really did struggle when I was cutting it out to get a pattern placement that I found to be satisfactory, so much so that I just ended up saying to myself, you know what, better sewn than perfect, and I ended up just cutting into it because there was no way I was able to get the pattern placement that I wanted. So I think one of the main problems was changing up that skirt pattern and not sticking with the original one. I also did some piping on the neckline and on the armhole, which I was very proud of because that took quite a fair bit of time to get it done properly, as well as with the lining fabric. I like the look of the bodice, but it's when we get to that skirt and the zipper insertion. Did you spot it, guys? Did you spot that I totally foobered the zipper insertion? And this is what happens when you suffer from hubris, where you just get so carried away, you don't even stop to think about the fact that the fabric has got some spandex. So when you're sewing your zipper in, you need to take into account the fact that the feed dog is going to be, feeding the fabric through faster. And that's how I ended up with that situation, which by the time I tried it on, the skirt and the bodice combo wasn't working out, and I just haven't been able to figure out how to fix it. So you can see there on the inside out that I lined just the bodice, and I love this lining fabric. I had to answer a phone call there, but where were we? Yes, the lining fabric. This is a Bamberg. I'm trying to pronounce that correctly, but it's a Bamberg lining, which I think it's a synthetic lining, but it feels as good as silk cabo tie, but without the fussiness of silk where you have to hand wash it and all. And I love this. I actually bought this from Italy a couple of years ago, and it's just fabulous. The dress has some individual merits, but I definitely messed some things up, and I'm not even sure that I'm going to be able to salvage this, to be honest. I feel like the ratios are just a little bit off on it. Like the skirt turned out to be too short, and I didn't have any more fabric, and they'd sold out of the fabric at Fabrics for All. So yeah, anyway, moving on, we're gonna go back to Russia with Grasser sewing patterns, and this is their free sundress pattern number 217. Heads up, I love this dress so much. I actually made two of them, one after the other. This one is made in a cotton fabric. I can't remember where I got this because I've been precious about this fabric, and it's been sitting in my stash for nearly 5 years now. The style itself has got some bust darts for just minimal shaping at the top, and it goes straight down. It is supposed to have slits on the lower side seam, but I skipped that because it's wide enough for me to walk and it doesn't actually restrict any mobility. It does have a lining at the top, and that's what gives it a really nice finish. I liked this so much, I took it with me to Normandy and I did get to wear it the one time that there was some warm weather in Normandy. This is a very practical dress, and I found that it was the perfect dress to wear on the one sunny day that we had and we were at the beach in France. This was another casualty of my travel wardrobe that didn't get to be shown in its splendor in France as much as I wanted it to, because it was raining the whole time that we were there. Ah, well, never mind. So this is the interior of the dress itself. So again, really super simple to make. You literally cut it out, sew up your bust darts, sew up those side seams, and then you sew up the facing, and then you have your straps and you put it up together, and it works really, really well. And I liked it so much that initially when I made it, I couldn't choose between the two fabrics. I had this 100% silk and that cotton that's been in my stash for years now. I decided that the silk would also be perfect for it. So this is 100% silk that I bought from Fabworks, I think about 2.5 years ago, and I've been precious about it. So another thing about this pattern is you can actually make it out of just 1 meter of fabric, because I had only 1 meter of the silk and 1 meter of that other blue and white cotton fabric, and I must say I love it in the silk. Silk fabric is so amazing to wear. It's just like got so many good vibrations, and I love the stripe on this dress actually. So the stripe is actually along the straight grain, so I had to center it alongst that yellow stripe. I like it that it's got these little dots. They make the stripes less severe. This was also packed for my holiday, but sadly didn't get worn. It just didn't happen. But I do like the fit of it, and I think that this could also potentially work well as a night dress if I wanted it to. And you can see the inside there with how you sew up the facing. So I managed to get the facing and the actual dress out of 1 meter of narrow silk fabric. So I'm thinking that I might make more of this out of, say, like a Liberty silk or something like that. But yeah, banging dress. It's also a free pattern, so highly recommended. And with all of my weird movements there, I'm trying to show you how well drafted it is, because I'm moving around and the dress itself isn't actually moving. And silk feels so gorgeous against the skin. Honestly, I think everybody should just wear silk all the time. I made a super baby hem where I finished it off with an overlocker and pressed it under. I had to use my vintage sewing machine because it does the perfect stitches for that. We move on to the realm of pattern drafting. The next couple of projects, I made them using the Winifred Aldridge's metric pattern curtain for women's wear sloper, as well as the Susie Ferris sloper from her book Building Patterns, the Architecture of Dressmaking. This project started with the fabric, so I love that Art Gallery Fabrics. It's called ice cream print, and it's got like these gigantic ice cream cones that have sprinkles on them against a navy background. It is a cotton poplin, so it is very crisp, which can be a little bit challenging in terms of construction. And because it is poplin, I think that this fabric is more suited to shirts more so than the shift dress that I chose for it. It's still a very wearable dress for me. However, I think if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably make it into a shirt. But my reasoning behind wanting to use it for a shift dress was that I just wanted something very simple. And pardon my husband, please, he works from home. And so I wanted to make a shift dress because I really didn't want to interrupt the ice cream cones initially. And as you can see, it does look really nice just being able to look at the ice cream cones themselves. But the thing with the shift dress is, even though it is a design that looks simple, in order to achieve simplicity, I think a dress has to be supremely well cut. And I think that this is where I fell slightly. My toiles were working quite well, but none of the fabrics I was using were quite the same drape as poplin. So my takeaway from this particular project is that when you're making a toile of a garment, you kind of really need to try and make it with a fabric that is as close to your final fabric as is possible. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love this dress. I wore it quite a lot over the summer and I enjoy wearing it, and it is very comfortable to wear. But it could be so much better, and that's just because I am improving my skill as a pattern drafter, as a seamstress. So I can kind of like be honest about that when I see areas that could be improved upon. It does have pockets, because pockets are everything. On the inside there, you can see that I finished it off with an overlocker, and I used some pink satin bias binding for the armhole. I am going to continue working on this particular pattern. I have put on some COVID pounds, so when I actually made this dress, it did fit me well around the bum area, but you know, stuff happens. Eat a lot of stuff during coronavirus. So all of the lessons that I learned in the last dress meant that this dress, this self-drafted dress, turned out to be absolutely perfect, and I love it. The fabric is a Lady McElroy linen look viscose crepe, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It's got a lovely texture to it, and I love the print. It's got these vintagey colors. I was really worried about being precious about this when I bought this from Fabrics for All, but after a while I decided that I was going to draft a pattern that I was going to use for it, and it turned out that I wanted a kimono sleeve, so I drafted a kimono sleeve block, and it's got a boat neckline. It's got some shaping along the bodice. It took me a while to decide what the skirt was going to be. At first it was going to be gathered, but then I kind of felt like, oh, I didn't want to be gathered, and I let it sit on the dress form as a bodice for a couple of weeks whilst I tried to figure out what the fabric wanted to say. And when I was watching Horrible Histories, as they were doing like a World War II thing, I saw those World War II dresses, and I was just like, yep, we need that soft, gentle flare line, and that's how this dress came to be. But again, I can't tell you how much I love it. It's got some back contouring because I do have a rounded back. I do have a separate video that I need to edit and put together that actually goes into full detail with the drafting and shows you all of the drafts, the papers that I have used. So do subscribe if you want to get information on that soon. But the thing with this dress is I feel like it's the perfect combination of simplicity and sensuality. There's just something about it that makes me feel, I feel really fabulous when I'm wearing it, and fabulous in a very, not quite a demure way. I love it. I love this dress, and it has been getting tons of wear. I decided to finish the boat neckline with a self bias binding, and you can see there's some of the details. The waistline, I decided to do it at a slight curve because I think that it's a subtle difference, but it does give a good fitting. So I kind of feel like all the mistakes made in the ice cream draft were worth it in order for me to get to this point where I have this dress that I like. So I will be making a lot more of these dresses, and the fabric was awesome. Okay, Lekala number 4235 represents my decision to boldly go towards new fashion frontiers. So I decided to make this dress in time for New Year's 2020. Back when we thought that 2020 was going to be an amazing year. Anyway, enough about that. I did get a fabulous dress out of it. So I made this with a lace sequin fabric, which is pow 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 in your face. I wanted a simple style but that also had some shaping, and this has some delicate shaping at the waist achieved by 4 dots at the front and fisheye dots at the back. The style you'll notice in the line drawing is actually longer, but I decided that there was a bit too much sequin and that it had to be a short dress that I wear with, you know, those thick opaque type tights that Beyonce wears. So the 2 times that I have worn this dress, I have worn it with those sort of thick tights that I couldn't be bothered to put on because it's like a really hot, humid day, but you get the idea. I love this dress. This is kind of like a once in a lifetime sort of dress that you need to have. You get the picture. I love this dress. Pretty much it is a once in a wardrobe kind of dress, though you don't really need to make this more than once. I did a lot of hand sewing, especially around the zipper. For the hem, I finished it in a bias binding and then did some hand sewing against the lace. So the fabric itself is actually lace that has sequins sewn onto it. You have to press the sequin seam open on a very low heat. I didn't realize this until I actually sewed with this. The lining is a jacquard polyester, which goes really well with the dress itself. I had to hand sew the zipper because I broke several needles when I was working with this. Even my overlocker needle broke when I tried to overlock it. Very silly, I know, shall never be done again. But by the end of this project, I was not enamored with sequin. It's not a fabric that I particularly enjoyed sewing with, and neither will I seek to sew with it again. It shed a lot of sequins all over the place, but it was worth it in the end for a once in a wardrobe dress. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed the video, and if you've stayed until this far, you are a rock star. You are awesome. I really appreciate that. I certainly had a blast recording this particular photo shoot, and there was just so much dancing in between. So what's happened is I've had to split this into 2 because I was going to move on to doing the separate. So I've got a bunch of skirts and a bunch of tops that I have made, but I'm just going to stop here for now because I'm enjoying being Tina Turner. And so I'm just going to spend the rest of the day pretending to be Tina Turner, cooking tomato soup and making bread for the kids and stuff like that. But in the meantime, I would really love it if you'd let me know which one is your favorite of the dresses so far. Let me know in the comments box down below. And also, because I kind of like to keep these videos quite short, if you want me to go into greater depth with a particular dress or a particular pattern, let me know in the comments and I will add that onto the list of videos that I plan on making. In the meantime, guys, keep safe, stay well, and Tina Turner says, happy sewing.